Hey, Jesse McDougall here at the Martial Arts of Money, doing Marcus Crassus Part 3. My vlog the other day was about 35 minutes long. My camera ran out of space. And the Part 3 of Marcus Crassus by Ward. This is from the University of Missouri. This book was $100. It was a pretty sweet book. Okay, so if you haven't seen the other videos, they're on my YouTube channel. I'll put up links there. But I'm going to leave off where... this won't be too long. Try not to make it too long, but I'm going to leave off where Marcus Crassus beat Spartacus and going forward. Okay, so this guy just saved Rome. Okay, one thing I didn't mention, I think I mentioned it in my first vlog on Marcus Crassus. So after he defeated the Spartacus slave rebellion army, there's about 5,000 to 6,000 prisoners of war. And what he did was he, on the Appian Way in Rome, for 400 miles, crucified every single one of them. And they all died on crosses, both sides of the road, all the way down. Yeah, that's pretty serious. I've never seen anything, or that's the only, like, the massive crucifixion that's ever existed in human existence. So this is what this guy did. He was worth $142 billion. So that's his way of leaving the stamp saying, hey, you think about doing a slave rebellion, and this was the third slave rebellion at the time, so 3 decades of slave rebellion wars. So this is the way of Marcus Crassus saying, hey, you want to think about rebelling against Rome? Think again. One more time, I'm going to say it. 400 miles, maybe 450 miles down the Appian Way from Rome, both sides, crosses, humans crucified. Crazy. Okay, so moving forward, I guess, it's not that important. So if we have to move on forward, I could talk about that for days. Marcus Crassus gave away 10% of his wealth for a sacrifice to Hercules. Okay, and what he did was there's 10,000 tables. He gave a feast for everyone. Every citizen of Rome got 3 months' supply of grain. He did this to buy popularity because now he was going for his political run. He just saved Rome. He's one of the richest men in Rome. Everyone owes him money and favors. He controls people through financial obligations. Now he's making his rise. Now, I had a note here I want to talk about, and this is 50 BCE, about what applies to today. I think in 1970s, where that movie American Gangster, I forget the star's name, but there's a scene in there where he's loading off turkeys to people in the projects to feed the community and stuff like that. And it kind of just reminded me of that and Pablo Escobar, where he was building schools and hospitals and stuff like that. So it's like, it's tough, man. You got like the good and you got the bad. And it's just I find this stuff very fascinating, where you can do criminal activity but take care of people at the same time. It's tough, and no one's perfect. So yeah, Crassus at one point was on political decline. At one point he was outnumbered. He was shunned by Pompey, Caesar, but Crassus outmaneuvers them both. Outmaneuvers them. He was a pure strategy guy, and it doesn't surprise me that he was a chess master. I'm just going to read a few pages here that I highlighted, a couple paragraphs. Crassus continued to live modestly for a man of his means after he acquired immense wealth. He did not throw it away on lavish villas and luxurious living. A lot of billionaires live this way. Plutarch quotes him saying that those with a mania for houses were ruined by themselves, not their enemies. And this touches on fame and material things and how it blinds you. And I'm going to get into how Marcus became blinded by his ambition, which led to his demise. He is almost unique among his peers in having remained married to the same woman till the end of his life. He married his brother's wife when his brother died. Crassus preferred Aristotle. So 2,000 years ago, this tycoon was reading Aristotle. You might want to check out Aristotle. I personally haven't read it yet. It's on my to-do list, though. As the only surviving member of tightly knit noble family and the son of a man who had reached the censorship and celebrated a triumph, so Crassus' father got a triumph, which is the biggest honor you can get in Roman times at this time, 50 BCE. Crassus was duty bound to strive to match these achievements and preserve the glory of his name. So Crassus, once he became proconsul, which in Rome there's 2 presidents or 2 prime ministers, they have 2 proconsuls. And once he reached that, he didn't get a triumph from saving Rome while he defeated the Spartacus army, because the consensus was, well, it's just a slave rebellion. It's not an army, so we can't give you a military victory. But so Crassus wanted that triumph. He wanted that fame. He wanted that recognition. And I guess I'll get into it now. It led him to a campaign in Syria. They wanted just to take over Syria. In Syria, they weren't a hostile at the time. There was no way. So they just declared war on Syria, and Marcus took his own army to do that. And he got misguided. A guide led him down the wrong path, the army. And Dan Carling describes this amazing in hardcore history in The Fall of the Roman Republic, and I think it's a 5-part series. It's pretty awesome. But basically they were in the desert, and I forget the horses' names, but they looked like, whatever horses, and they took off their blankets and they realized they had these huge armors, and they just rode around in a circle for an entire day, shooting arrows and slowly picking apart the army. And Marcus Crassus was he had all the resources, totally out, like in the advantage, and he lost. He got wiped. He was killed. And history, when Marcus died, I don't know for sure. Nobody knows for sure. They talk about how he died. And so if you see the movies where they pour gold down the guy's mouth, some people say that's what happened. But they definitely brought him in, paraded him in front of everyone, and killed him. So the one story says they poured gold down his throat and his face and burned him alive, because his greed, his love for gold, led him down that path to his death. And his son died in the war as well. So yeah, I just have there's a note here from the book. It says luxury is the root of evil. Example, in Roman slavery was needed as a basic input to run Roman economy, with the revolutionary economy for the plantation of agriculture. The latifundium, which is wide fields, employed thousands of slaves. Well, not employed thousands of slaves, but they needed that basic input. Thousands of slaves were needed to work these fields, which produced wealth for the owners. Rome was a very, very competitive culture for wealth and power and dominance. One could say the hardest and boldest of men. Now, it's kind of interesting because today modern day slavery exists. It's just disguised in a different way. For jobs, for example, most jobs, people are going to pay you enough so that you don't quit. But they're not going to, and just so you can survive and maybe go on an extra trip or here and there, pay your mortgage down in 25 years. But no one's ever going to pay you more than they get paid. So they kind of keep you by the grip that way. There's also another movie coming out, but there's a very popular book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. It's going to be a movie at some point. I actually know the guys who own the rights to it. It's kind of interesting story to hear. But that's pretty interesting. Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Modern day slavery, country to country, and not just people to people. So, and then there's 2 comments I'm going to make here. And it was pretty sad to see a man of Marcus's stature, his demise, how he died basically, but you know, nothing really good comes out of war. He was 60 years old at the time he went to war, started a war in Syria, but he wanted that fame, he wanted that triumph. So, you know, maybe if you can talk to him, would he say it was a mistake? I don't know. He went for it, and he lost. So he had everything in the world, but he lost. So last thing I'm going to say here is about the 3 different types of slaves. There's a type of slaves that worked on the farms and they slept in the barracks. They had chains on their necks the entire time they're working. It's crazy. The second time were the herdsmen who had they had no chains because they had to work with the animals, let them roam and graze, and they needed weapons to protect themselves against other predators and other bandits. It's a very dangerous time. So these were very hard men. And the third type of slaves at this time was bailiffs and managers, so people that could do more than just basic work. And the last thing I want to talk about, so I didn't touch on the campaign in Syria too much. I'm not going to go into that too much. You should really listen to Dan Carling's Hardcore History about that. And yeah, he does just an amazing job. But Dan Carling is how I found out about Marcus Crassus, and was just kind of fascinated with his whole story. And the last thing I want to say, just some wisdom, is use your working capital to buy assets, not luxury items. That's what Marcus Crassus did. So do that. Do that. Buy yourself a shiny object once in a while, but just reward yourself when it's not a big piece of your wealth. And Matt Perron, thanks for the question. But no, I don't know if... Actually, I don't know if Marcus Crassus played soccer, baseball. I don't think they had soccer, baseball at the time. Anyways, take care. Thanks. Bye.